Hey, if you're in silver, or even just watching it, you really need to hear this. The price recently took a massive nosedive, and the story behind it, well, it's not what you might think. Let's get right into it.
So what in the world happened here? I mean, 1 minute, silver is soaring, hitting a record high. Literally hours later, it's in a free fall. The big question we're tackling today is, was this just the market doing its thing? Or was someone pulling the strings behind the curtain?
All right, so to really get what went down, we have to rewind to the exact moment it all fell apart. The market was absolutely on fire, reaching a new peak, and then, boom, it was over.
So, picture this. It's December 28th. The silver market is electric. The price just skyrockets to an incredible all-time high of $83.90. But the party didn't last long. I mean, within just a few hours, the price had cratered by more than 10%.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Our source material says this was not your typical market reaction. It wasn't a herd of investors suddenly getting spooked. It wasn't some huge hedge fund shorting the market. Nope. The reason for the crash, according to them, was much more direct. Somebody changed the rules of the game, right in the middle of play.
Okay, so if it wasn't a panic, what was it? Let's play detective here. We're going to follow the money trail and find the exact trigger that kicked off this whole mess.
And here's what we find. The trigger was a pretty quiet move by a group called the CME. Now, these are the folks who run the COMEX exchange. That's the big leagues for trading metals like silver. And with very little fanfare, they just went ahead and raised what's called the margin requirement. So, what on earth is a margin requirement? Let's break it down. It's basically like a security deposit for your trade. It's the minimum cash you have to keep in your account to hold a silver futures contract. Now, imagine your landlord suddenly decides to hike up your security deposit. That's what happened here. Everyone holding a contract suddenly had to cough up more cash immediately. And that one move set off a massive chain reaction. The CME jacked up the requirement from around $20,000 to $25,000 a contract. So, poof, just like that, traders needed an extra $5,000. If you couldn't find it, you had no choice. You had to sell. And when thousands of people are forced to sell at the exact same time, well, the price can only go one way, down. And it went down hard and fast.
And get this, the timing was just perfect, or suspicious depending on how you look at it. This all went down during that sleepy holiday week between Christmas and New Year's. The markets are super thin then. Not a lot of people are trading. A lot of human traders are on vacation, so computers are running the show. And when those automated systems get a margin call, they don't think, they just sell. Instantly. It turned a problem into a full-blown cascade.
You know, if you're thinking, wow, that sounds like a very specific, very effective way to crash a price, you're right. Because according to our source, this isn't the first time this has happened. Not by a long shot. In fact, it looks like someone was reading from a very familiar playbook. Just look at this pattern. It's pretty stark when you lay it out. Go back to 1980, silver hits a massive peak. The exchange changes the rules and wham, the price collapses 80%. Fast forward to 2011, silver's nearing $50 an ounce. Margins get hiked not once, but 5 times, and the price gets cut almost in half. And here we are today. Silver hits a new record, and what happens? A margin hike kicks off a forced liquidation. See a pattern here? The source doesn't mince words. They say it's the same playbook every major peak. The tool used to slam the brakes on a silver rally seems to be the exact same one, time and time again.
But here's the really critical part of this whole story. This playbook, it only seems to work in one world, the world of paper silver. And that brings us to this huge disconnect happening right now, the tale of two silvers, paper versus physical.
And the split is just massive. I mean, look, on one side you've got paper silver. That's futures, ETFs, all the financial stuff. Its price got crushed because it lives and dies by the exchange's rules. But then you look at the other side, physical silver. We're talking real, hold it in your hand bars and coins. And in that world, the price barely budged. In fact, people were paying huge premiums to get it, and we were hearing about shortages, not a glut. It's like two completely different universes.
Yeah, the physical market was screaming the exact opposite message. Reports were coming out that buyers in Asia were basically ignoring the official price on the COMEX. They were paying whatever it took to get their hands on actual metal. At the same time, the stockpiles of real silver in China, in London, even in the COMEX's own vaults are apparently draining away fast.
And this is where the paper games run headfirst into a brick wall called reality. Because you can play all the financial games you want to push a price around, but you can't change the simple facts of physical supply and demand.
And we have to talk about that demand, because it's not just about coins and bars anymore. Silver is a workhorse. It's an absolutely critical metal for the technology that's building our future. We're talking solar panels, electric cars, and get this, the giant data centers that run all the AI we're hearing about. This is real, industrial, we need this stuff demand.
So here's the squeeze, laid out plain and simple. You've got industrial demand, and it's climbing. But at the same time, the amount we're pulling out of the ground, the mining supply, is pretty much flat. So what happens when more and more people want something that we're not making more of? You get a deficit, and that gap is getting wider.
And as if that wasn't enough, there's a new wrinkle, a big one. On January 1st, China threw a curveball. They control a massive chunk of the world's refined silver, and they've just changed their rules about exporting it. We don't know the full impact yet, but you can bet it's not going to make physical silver easier to find.
Which really brings us back to the core idea from our source. And this quote just says it all. You can crush paper prices, but you can't change the reality of physical shortages. You can mess with the numbers on a screen, but you can't print more metal. A shortage is a shortage.
So where does that leave us? Look, we all know silver is a wild ride. That's a given. But the real question isn't about the volatility. The question this whole situation forces us to ask is, was that crash just the market being the market, or was it a calculated move in a much bigger game? And maybe the most important question of all is, do you understand the rules?